Actually, we are still ready and eager to surprise you, I mean, the Europeans and so all of the world with our military, with our soldiers, with their bravery. But anyways, let's get back to other very important decisions that were made mutually at the Ukraine-NATO Council that was held on the question of our President Zelensky 2 weeks after the NATO summit. What is the reason for such a quick decision? That will be my first question. And could it be possible to solve all the problems during the summit in Vilnius or independently without holding the council?
You know, I used to serve as diplomat, and my task was to sit during NATO summits, NATO councils, behind the closed door. And I witnessed how Commission, at that time it was NATO-Russia Commission, Council, or how different commissions were organized. And myself, I could see from the very first hand this experience. The difference between commission, which was in the past, is that you are on the menu. But if you are a member of the council, you can ask that others come and listen to you and help you to solve your problem. And this is difference. You become one among the others. And this is a huge shift. If we take into account that before Vilnius summit, NATO-Ukraine Council didn't exist. And if I understand well, it was President Zelensky who asked to convene the council. So maybe it is a question more appropriate to be asked to his administration, to presidential administration of Ukraine, to disclose the reasons. But I can imagine that the needs of help and of assistance and also of assessment of the situation are such that he needed to discuss it behind closed door and focus only on the agenda he provided and prepared for such a event. And this is a huge difference. I can imagine.
You just said about the focus, so I want to focus on the main initiative of President Zelensky in this council, in this situation. And the main question is, are defense guarantees before we become a part of NATO. So that's why he is so initiative and our country is initiative. So my question is now, the debates in the capitals of the West mainly go around how to end this war in such a way or so for Ukraine to be secure for its future and not to be attacked by Russians or Russia in the next 3 or 5 years or so. So you understand this difficulty, and maybe behind the closed door in the diplomatic level, you heard any realistic, effective ideas how to provide the security to Ukraine in the next 3-5 years?
Yes, this is a very acute question, and I think that we have to think about on 2 levels. First level is bilateral level, because according to the international law, Ukraine under attack, or any country under attack, can ask others to provide assistance. So this is bilateral level, which is, by the way, in force, because if we observe declarations or commitments of some NATO members, we see that this is something already in place. And second, this is collective defense, and this is something that we have to clarify, because for the time being it is only for NATO members. But if we come back to the months and weeks of the war, and we revisit how impressive the help of both NATO and EU countries and also globally was to Ukraine, I think that we live in a very special times, and probably this request for further assistance could be met by additional guarantees. But just don't ask me which ones, because I think that the charm of this kind of guarantees would stem only from very closed-door sessions based on trust. And this is not my role, just to speak about what comes into my mind, because it wouldn't be serious.
Do you notice that after all such huge international meetings with the Ukrainian side, and especially after the Vilnius summits, Russians became more impudent, so maybe rough, because we see the exit from the grain deal, we see the attacking of agricultural port infrastructure, we see permanent rockets fire and drone attacks on the civil infrastructure. That's what we hear and feel from inside the country. So what to do with this? Can we affect somehow? I'm sorry, can you affect somehow in the situation?
I can imagine that, for instance, after elections in Turkey, we can analyze the situation there and observe that, for instance, bilateral relation between Ankara and Russia is different than 1 year ago. And I think that this is something that we have to take in mind, to bear in mind that Russia probably observes that the number of leverages it had in the past is less important than before. By the way, Putin convinced both Finland and Sweden to join NATO, and I think that this is one of the examples of his miscalculation in strategic terms. Nevertheless, we are all extremely vulnerable to attacks of Russia, be it by cyber or a network or other systems that Russia can attack. And I think that we have to be extremely aware of the vulnerability of our own systems, and at the same time rediscover, by observing Ukraine, that even under attack, Ukraine never had a serious blackout. And this is amazing. I discussed it with your Minister of Energy, and I realized that the level of creativity of Ukrainians in securing power supply and avoiding blackout is such that we again have to take some lessons and probably revisit our plans in order to be secure altogether better.
But on the other hand, we see that Russia increased the production of drones and missiles. So as we can see, the sanctions don't work in this position. And we understand that the winter is coming, the next winter is coming, and these drones, it's a very effective weapon in the hands of Russia towards our critical infrastructure, and it's obvious. So what can we do in these fields? I mean, how can we stop their communication with Iran? How can we stop the building the plants for constructing these drones on the territory of Russia? Among sanctions, are there any instruments?
I think that Russia provides us the worst example of how to behave. If we go back maybe 10 days ago, Shoigu, the Minister of Defense, was on official 3-day visit in North Korea. North Korea, which is under international sanctions, on the blacklist, to be maybe more exact, more precise. And Shoigu there speaks and deals about defense cooperation. This is completely mad in terms of international responsibility of Russia as permanent member of UN Security Council. And this is something that we have to bear in mind. Russia, in the struggle to continue this illegal aggression, is reinforcing cooperation not only with China, but with Iran, but also with North Korea. And concerning drones, this is a huge problem also for us because 2-3 years ago we didn't have any capacity in Czech Republic to protect ourselves against drones attack. So I think that this is a race against this is kind of race, speeding race that we have to create not only new arms, but also new counter arms and defenses, because drones can fly extremely far away. By the way, some of the missiles from Russia already flew across member states of NATO, for instance, and we have to be extremely cautious. So I think that the danger is really shared, and we can together bring some solutions. By the way, not only on the governmental level, the number of civilian or of NGOs collecting money for drones for Ukraine is amazing here and in other member states of NATO or of EU. So I think that there is a huge solidarity also on behalf of regular citizens who collect money because they see that the drones are extremely important.